Glenn Cerio challenges deputy to mutual combat. American activist and snappy dresser Glenn Cerio returned to YouTube Thursday with a new video released to YouTube featuring the First Amendment auditor challenging a Snohomish County sheriff to mutual combat at the Mukilteo Speedway Center in Mukilteo, Washington. Cerio apparently was randomly wandering through the Speedway Center's lower parking lot when he encountered an armored truck parked near a Wells Fargo-branded ATM. A worker was working on the ATM, and Cerio began filming the man as he worked. A second man in a white pickup truck approached Cerio and asked him what he was doing. Cerio refused to answer, and the man walked back to his truck. That man installed a sign directing customers to a LA Fitness gym located in the upper parking lot, then drove off, flipping off Cerio in the process. After the man left, Cerio returned to filming the worker at the ATM, standing about 4 parking spots away from the man. Eventually, the man realized he was being filmed and picked up the cash he was loading into the machine and retreating into the armored vehicle. Cerio became angered that the man left the machine's cover open and started wondering aloud if the men operating the Loomis security vehicle had a schedule to maintain. Cerio, now completely oblivious that he was considered a threat by the Loomis workers, continued to film in the parking lot. Eventually, a Snohomish County sheriff's vehicle rolled up on Cerio, with a deputy asking Cerio what was going on from inside the vehicle. Cerio pretending he couldn't hear the officer, and the officer, along with a man on a ride-along, exited the vehicle. Cerio explained to the officer that he was just filming and asked the officer if he could force the worker to return to work. He expressed a concern that the machine's cover was still open to the officer and did not notice as the Loomis worker returned to the machine and finished whatever operation he needed to finish. After Cerio realized he had been distracted, he asked the deputy if he knew any specific fighting styles. When the deputy said he didn't, Cerio asked him what he'd do if he was attacked. The officer replied he'd figure out if that happened. Cerio then asked the officer if he's been kicked in the leg so hard that he was disabled for a couple of days afterwards. Puzzled, the deputy said no. Cerio then asked if the deputy wanted to get in a scuffle and challenged the deputy to mutual combat in the parking lot. After the deputy declined Cerio's unusual advances, Cerio mocked the deputy, stating that the officer was dressed for combat, while Cerio was just a man wearing slippers. The deputy again declined. The incident continued as both the Loomis armored vehicle and the police vehicle drove away. A man walked up to Cerio and asked if the ATM was working. Cerio pretending not to speak English, and the man walked up to the ATM. Cerio filmed the man as he approached the ATM, stopping only when he noticed that the sheriff's vehicle had returned to the parking lot and was observing what he was filming. Cerio walked past the man using the ATM and stood at an angle where he couldn't see the screen until the man left. The video abruptly cut off as the man walked away from the ATM.